It's finally time to solidify this pick. Joshua Van versus Tatsuro Taira. And I did some tape. It's Gucci, bro. I know my pick, a Moochie go. But this shit gonna be a wrap, the Asian way, a sushi roll. Yeah, baby, yeah. It's gonna be a wrap, the Asian way, a sushi roll. Hey, we got some Asian pride in the building, guys. Asian versus Asian. You love to see it, man. You love to see it, you know. You guys know I'm part Korean, you know, Shiba. I say it every day. This means I part Korean. You know, I love my Korean people. I love my Japanese people. Where is Joshua Van from? I forgot. I think it's like Maynard. I feel like it starts with an M, but it's an exotic Asian country. No matter what, guys, this is Asian representation. So we have to do a stylistic breakdown for my Asian people, my Asian followers, my Asian subscribers. And, you know, this is next level, man. These are young guys, man. These are young blokes, man. I believe Van is 24. Taira's 25. So these are a battle of not only two Asian people fighting for a title, but it's also a battle of the two. This is the youngest title fight in UFC history, guys. These two were born in the 2000 era. Yeah, chat, we finally made it, guys. We made it. I think Van was 2001. Taira was 2000. You know, I'm 2002, so that means I'm next up. Brother, wait, I coming. But, guys, I finally did a lot of footage on this. I'm ready. I'm ready to make this pick. I'm ready to solidify this pick. And this is a pretty in-detail breakdown, you know. I had to do it because I really want to, because I was thinking Van yesterday when I made my prediction video. It's like, I need to solidify why I think this or find out why I'm actually wrong because some people disagree. So, in this video, you're going to find out my opinion. Maybe it changed, brother. Maybe same. Let's do it together, guys. Starting off with things to note. We're going to start off to note things about Tatsuro Taira. Fatal striking flaw. Most of his opponents exploited. I'm going to talk about this more in the striking cons. But hint, hint, has something to do with the movement of the cranium. The movement of the head is a big thing. Second thing to note, I said best grappler in the UFC. Whoa! I didn't know, man. Candy, that damn, they haunted my. Shut up. You know what? I respect it, though. But, like, guys, his grappling, like, watching him is, like, it's almost like a different kind of grappling. Like, a grappling level so high that I feel like I just don't see it normally. With, like, Hamza, you know what you're going to get. He's going to attack you. You know he's going to make you scramble. He's going to go for the choke. But it's just, like, Taira's understanding of so many different things and like kind of wrestling techniques I don't see that I feel like they're like prioritizing in Japan because I see other fighters who do something similar. We're going to talk about one of those fighters being Tatsuro, who's actually an opponent that fought against Joshua Van. We'll talk about that later in the video, but his grappling is just unique. The way he blew out Alex Perez's leg. Oh my God, when he kicked it out, like his ACL rupture, that was all trained. That's all practice because they learned some different type of esque things over there in Japan. And I love it. It's like a different level of grappling, modern era grappling that we don't see often. So I do think he might be arguably the best grappler in the UFC, guys. The way he gets the back, the way he controls you, the way he flattens you out and gets you in a bad position to land ground and pound, the way he can find the rear naked chokes and submissions. This guy's one of the most dangerous grapplers in the UFC today, and it's not even close. Third, though, thing to note is he never faced a boxer like Van. I think a quick counter to be, dude, he faced Royval. I don't know if you guys know, Royval's not like a Van when it comes to boxing. I think we could see that when Royval actually fought Van. Royval's good output. He's good, like, straight punches. You know, he uses his range well. But he's not actually, like, a boxer on the realm of Van. I think that showed in their fight because it was almost a distinct difference every time Van would land on Royval. Royval would just throw a lot of kicks, a lot of jabs, but like Royval's more output based, where I feel like Van's actually more skilled boxer based. So he's never stood in front of a boxer like Van, and that is something very huge to talk about, especially because one of his fatal striking flaws. That being said, let's talk about things to note for Joshua Van. His first career loss was by rear naked choke, and this is important, guys, because I didn't actually want to look back at this. You know, I kept getting someone, hey, look back at Kenny, you have to watch this fight. I'm glad I watched this. It's almost eye-opening. That made me realize something. Why this first fight his first loss, why it was so significant is because he got his back taken. He's going against someone like Taira who takes the back really well. Not only was his back taken, he showed me that he has the ability to quit. I didn't think that from Joshua Van. Now you'd be like, Kenny, it's a submission. Of course he's going to quit. Guys, that's not what I'm talking about. You heard the 10-second bell go off. He was in a face crank. It wasn't a clear rear naked choke, and he panic tapped, almost like ankle lab Paul Craig. Think that.
Rear naked choke. Final clap for 10 seconds, and he taps. Wow. About 2 seconds left in round 2. Joshua Van taps.
So that's why it's so important, because he was put in an uncomfortable position in the grappling where he was a bit more fatigued, and he resorted to tapping. Not because he was about to go out cold, and not because he was under the neck, because he was uncomfortable. Fuck! Dude, I can't deal with that. Guys, I hate that. It's like when I saw that, it made me not change things, but it made me look at this fight from a different perspective. Taira will put you in uncomfortable positions if he does get you down. The fact that that uncomfortable position doesn't even have to be a full rear naked choke and it could still just overwhelm Van and make him tap, that's a little bit problematic for me. That fight was in 2021. It's been 5 years, so can things have changed? Sure. But I've noticed about that one habit about people. Like, I remember I thought Ankalaev changed, and then when he was put in a position to quit again, he showed against Pereira he can't quit when shit hits the fan. So that is a very important thing that I had to know, and I'm very happy I went back and watched that. I can't lie, because if I didn't, maybe I'd be thinking something different. But that is so important, and it gives me the heebie-jeebies, man. It gives me the heebie-jeebies, You guys know, like, you get a little bit of goosebumps, your hair stand out. That's what it made me. I watched that, and I was looking at my screen confused, like, why did he do that? And he was, like, beating that guy, too. That guy was actually kind of muscling him as well in the wrestling realm. Like, he was grabbing him in the clinch, taking him down in the clinch off of sheer strength. So it was kind of one of those fights I was like, damn, like, this is eye-opening. Of course, that was only like 6 fights into his professional career, so he wasn't the guy he is right now, and I feel like that Tatsuro fight showed improvement there, but still, it's just something you got to keep in the back of your head. Shit hits the fan, he might quit. Second, I said best boxer in the UFC. Yes, I think he's the most skilled boxer. I think him and Ilya are up there for 1 and 2. I think he's better than Ilya skill for skill. I think he's more reactive. I think his combos are a little bit better, but I think Topuria has more sting. So Topuria might be a better boxer if you value power, but as far as straight skill, I do think Joshua Van's the best boxer in the UFC, and I'm gonna die on that hill. Especially what he did to Royval. Like, I know the thing is, like, Royval is like Max Holloway. That's I know you're like, oh no, they're not. They fight nothing alike. They're strikers who are gonna throw high volume at you. The only difference is Royval has like BJJ base. Max doesn't. We've seen the Charles fight, but Max was able to land a lot on Ilya, and make it like a fight on the feet because his volume and like how well he throws that. That's kind of like Royval. If you guys haven't watched Royval, I recommend watching him. He's like very like straight 1-2, 1-2 low kick. He just throws a lot and gives you like overwhelms a lot of people. When Van went against that style, I feel like he dealt with it a lot better than when Ilya went against it. Of course, Ilya got the finish on paper. I'm like, oh, well, Ilya's better because he finished him. But Ilya took a lot of damage. He was kind of wearing on the face by the time he got that, where I feel like Van was not really taking anything clean and kind of slipping a lot of the shots and landing some great counters. So I do think he's the best boxer in the UFC objectively. And then third, and the biggest thing, he's faced a high-level Japanese grappler already in Rei Tatsuro. It's important that he's a high-level grappler and he's Japanese, because I swear some of the same techniques, not same techniques, but these unique techniques I've never seen, Tatsuro does it as well as Taira does it. Now, if you actually look at the takedowns, because I think Tatsuro went like 4 for 25 on takedowns against Van, and Tatsuro is objectively better at wrestling in some ways than Taira, I've noticed. But if you actually look at the takedowns, they're like these 2 weird exotic arm drag takedowns that he was able to score on Van, where like he almost like uses his body position to like somehow force Van to the ground, and it just goes back to that next level Japanese grappling that I'm starting to see for some of these newcomers in the UFC. That is very impressive. Keep in mind, Tatsuro is like 21, 22. He's younger than both of them, but they're all young. Like, Taira's 25, but it's just seeing that new age of grappling, and I'm so happy Van went against that level of grappler already, because when he goes against Taira, it might not be of a shock factor. Like, what kind of takedown attempts is this guy doing? This shit's weird as hell. I've never seen it before. So Van actually stood in front of that, whereas I feel like Taira has not stood in front of a boxer like Van, but Van has stood in front of a grappler like Taira. And this is important because Rei Tatsuro was the first grappling test that Van went against since his 2021 loss from that rear naked choke. So if he went against Tatsuro and was like getting taken down as easy as he was in that first loss, and like he was getting put in bad positions, and like Tatsuro, I'd be a little bit more nervous, and I would take a little bit more from that first career loss. But I have seen distinct improvement, specifically on his takedown defense from the Tatsuro fight. And I actually went back. I went the extra mile. I went back and watched some Rei Tatsuro fights in the road to the UFC and stuff. His grappling is better than I thought. I thought he was primarily a great slick wrestler, but no, the way he could take the back, the submissions he does, like I swear he had like a headlock throw into like a headlock as well as like a Kimura. He was doing some finishes I ain't never seen before. I'm like, what? So he is a next level grappler. He's not just a wrestler, he's a grappler. He does weird shit and it works. Like, I don't even understand where these dudes are getting it from. I don't know what gym they're going to, the Tatsuros and the Tairas, but it is crazy. So Rei Tatsuro is legit. So I had to go back and make sure he wasn't just decent in the UFC with his grappling, but he's been decent his whole life. You know, and I'm sure he was like 19, 18 in the road, which is crazy. So he's still young, still developing. You know, of course, Taira, in my opinion, might be objectively a better grappler. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but I do think that Van has already stood in front of that next level generation grappler in the UFC. Now, without further ado, let's get into the striking pros and cons from Taira, and then we're going to go into Van and we're going to compare. Starting with Taira, striking pros, straight left is heavy and is quick. He likes to throw his straight left into the opposition a lot of times, and it lands. It looks pretty thudding, and actually he's rocked a couple of people using that shot, so I think it's something very worth noting. Then I also said he has a sneaky uppercut. Like, he's been doing this slick thing where he just lands an uppercut when someone's like entering in front of him, and he lands it pretty clean. He did it a couple times, you know, in a couple different fights, and I feel like it always lands. So like, I think people don't see it coming because he doesn't throw it wicked often, but every single time he does throw it seems to land, and he like averages it at least like 1 or 2 a fight minimum. So he's always going to throw it in a fight, and for some reason it always lands. So that could be something sneaky that could surprise Van and be like, oh shit, he has that in his arsenal. Maybe wake Van up a little bit. Then third, and this is a huge point because he's going against a boxer we just watched, JDM versus Carlos Prates, occasional strong low kicks. He's dropped people with low kicks before. He's hurt people with low kicks. He's shown that his low kicks are heavy. Now, he doesn't necessarily prioritize his low kicks the way like Prates does. Like Prates, I knew was a huge pro against the JDM fight. I was saying that because I knew JDM was very heavy on the front leg, and Prates like throws it a lot. Taira's not like really known for his low kicks, but when he's striking, he throws them. So I will say it's a very good pro, and I actually think he's going to come in with a little bit higher of a low kick approach, given that Joshua Van's a primary boxer, and given that if you take away a boxer's front leg, it tends to be a little bit problem start to commence, for problem to start, and then commence the problem. So I do think he's going to come out with the low kicks, you know. I think it's going to happen, man. He's going to come out, he's going to throw some low kicks. He's going to make it just a tough outing for Van, because if he doesn't, I do think he likes to box more, but he can't do that. Like, if he tries to do that, Shibai, brother, Shibai, he's going to catch some mean. Oh, my God. It's going to be a bad night for him. But those are striking pros. I think he should come out with the low kick primarily. I think he's going to throw a lot of jabs. He likes to jab a lot, too, which I didn't even put as a pro because I don't know if I can say that's a pro in this fight and for a specific reason. But let's get into those cons, guys. And these are huge. I said this has a fatal flaw, guys. Worst head movement in UFC history, ? It's crazy. It's like something that it's so weird looking at. Like, man, in the Royval fight, I remember watching his head movement, and he was just stagnant. By the third round, like his head never moves. Even the early rounds, the Moreno fight showed that. But even later in the rounds, it just gets worse. Like, it's like his head stays in the center line. It's like a punching bag for opposition. This is so important, and this is such a big con because against Joshua Van, he's going to throw combos, you know. Oh my God, he's going to throw combos. It's going to be really bad for this guy. Like, his lack of head movement, it's one of the worst I've ever seen. It's almost like he panics and doesn't know what to do. I remember feeling bad for him, actually, in the Royval fight, watching it live. I think I had him winning as well because I thought he was going to, like, out-grapple Royval, you know, but I remember seeing that 5th round. I was like, oh, man, I feel for him. The kid's just not moving his head. And I was thinking, oh, he's just so young. I felt for him, man. I was like, damn it. Like, and I thought it was just like a thing there, but the Moreno fight showed that he still doesn't move his head. It's something, it's like a hard habit to improve on, I suppose. Like, you can't just get over it better than in the fight, and he's probably not going to improve much on it in this fight, like upcoming against Joshua Van this Saturday. But it's just such a big con. Like, this is one of the biggest cons against a boxer, you know. So as long as he's standing, it's just a living hell for him, in my opinion. Also said one strike at a time, which is a huge flaw specifically against Van. He likes to jump into that straight and then like leave it. He'll throw a head kick, he'll leave it. He'll throw a low kick, he'll leave it. He'll throw a knee, he'll leave it, or shoot a takedown afterwards. He'll throw a hook, then stop. He throws one strike at a time. Why it's a problem for someone like Van's that Van's a counter striker. So when you throw that strike, Van will slip it and you'll follow with 3, 4, 5 strikes. What could maybe halt that momentum is that when you throw that one strike, you know Van's going to slip and counter. So that's when you have to try to slip and counter and land and counter Van. But he's not really known for crazy counters. He does have some counters on him, but it's just bad that he plans on usually throwing one strike at a time, because against a counter striker, they're going to look to slip that strike and follow up with multiple combos, and it's going to usually leave you hurt or leave you rocked. So that one strike at a time in and out thing he likes to do, it's not going to go really well for him. He does move pretty well in and out. He'll circle pretty well, but that one strike at a time mixed with his bad head movement is just a recipe for disaster against Joshua Van specifically. So I think these cons are very important, and they're very, very bad for him, man. He can't be striking with this guy. He has to wrestle as soon as possible. That being said, let's get into the striking pros and cons for Joshua Van. Pros, best counter striker in the UFC. Like, I just think he's the best counter striker in the UFC, guys. Great combo puncher coming forward. He likes to do that 1-1-2, the 1-2-1. Like, he mixed it up beautifully. I said precise, fast, and reactive. That goes back to the counter striking. Then I said low kick and oblique kick are there. He likes to throw this low kick and also like this stomping oblique kick, similar to like Jones Whitaker. Like, he would just stomp on the front leg. I think all of them are beautiful. But one of his best weapons, and the most important thing here, is his best counter striker, because he's such a good counter striker going against someone who throws one strike at a time. So when that person throws one strike at a time, he's going to slip and he's going to counter with great combos coming forward. And when he's doing that, it's going to be very overwhelming for his opposition. He's very reactive. So like, he reacts quickly off of you because he's also walking you down. I'd even add pressure boxing. That's one of his best pros, if not his best pro, especially for a fight like this, because his pressure boxing is going to be overwhelming for somebody who prioritizes takedowns. Now, you might be like, that's counterproductive. Like, if you're trying to avoid takedowns, shouldn't you back up? No. Backing up is always going to give the guy shooting a takedown more comfortability and have them feel safer shooting takedowns, because you're not putting anything in front of them. You're not pressuring them. You can't really shoot a takedown off the back foot. And we're going to actually get into Taira, and I have some problems, I feel like, with his grappling. But this is big. Him backing up Taira with his pressure boxing and using his combos, and Taira trying to maybe throw a straight to like get him off him, but he's slipping it and coming with combos. That's going to lead to like the battering of Tatsuro Taira. It's going to be very tough for him to overcome. So I do think every single thing that Van does well can really exploit every single thing that he does poorly in his striking, especially the one strike at a time and the lack of head movement. And I just see it as a really, really tough time for him as long as this fight's standing. As for like pros, is like, really, I could go on a tangent about his pressure boxing, his speed, his precision, his reactivity, his mix of kicks, body kicks, low kicks, even some head kicks at times. Joshua Van's just one of the most complete strikers in the UFC, one of the best strikers in the UFC, who people aren't going to actually say he's one of the best strikers. You're always going to see people say Ilya, Alex Pereira, Tal Massimo, Cyril Gane. They're going to all say him before Joshua Van, not actually realizing he might be the best striker in the UFC, period. So I got to give him his credit. He's not only a boxer. People are forgetting about the low kicks and oblique kicks. He's one of the most complete strikers. So after watching footage, I just get more in awe about how good his striking really is, especially the performances he's had against people like the likes of Brandon Royval, who just doesn't get done like that. Look back at that fight. Very good fight that I feel like Van won every round, and was just landing cleaner shots. It wasn't even overwhelmed by the volume of Royval, and just, he didn't slow down. I'd even put that as a pro. Like, he doesn't get tired, which is weird, because the output in the Royval fight was crazy, which I think is the best fight of all time, if you guys don't know that, by the way. But the output in that fight was disgusting, and the fact that he didn't slow was a little bit abnormal to me. I was like, how is that even possible? Surely you're gonna slow. Like, Royval does that to everyone. He just puts an absurd pace on them and they break. He lives in altitude. Why are you not slowing? It doesn't make sense why you aren't slowing. Keep in mind, grown-ass man, strong, handsome, look good. He not slowing, brother. My brother, dale. Joshua Van's just a dog, man. I love watching his fight. I love watching his strike. So definitely one of the best. As far as his cons go, not much to talk about, but there's one I'm just going to say. I said brawling tendencies leave chances, and I put the Johnson fluke. Sorry, Johnson. Charles Johnson, good guy. He followed me on Instagram. He handsome, strong. I respect Johnson, but I'm not saying it's a bit of a fluke. Like, I just don't see him beating Van again. I'm sorry, Johnson. I just don't see him beating Van again. Johnson's great, but like, I feel like Van's like, it's just more of a precise striker in general. And I feel like he does brawl a lot, which when you brawl, it just leaves openings inevitably. Like, so that's why people like Johnson, even though they might not be objectively a better striker, Johnson was getting cooked that fight, by the way, but he was able to find a time to catch him, because when you're coming forward, you can get caught. This con's not that big against someone like Taira, because Taira's not a great striker. Like, Charles Johnson's pretty elusive and unique in his striking, where I feel like Taira is just not that great of a striker in general, but he's not bad at striking. Don't get me wrong, Taira's not a bot, but he's just not he's not that talented to make me concerned about this con that I do see from Joshua Van. That being said, how does the striking compare to each other? I said it's no head movement versus Van's combos. Like, you just gotta gulp at that, bro. It's just a recipe for disaster. I said Taira should prioritize his low kick more this fight. I know Taira does like to box a little bit, but brother, just prioritize that low kick and keep it pushing, bro. Nah, dude, I want to fuck them. Nah, let me box. Shut up, Taira. Shut your mouth and fucking low kick and run and shoot. That's what he's got to do. I just think the singular shots of Vans are going to open up the counters. The singular shots for Taira is going to open up the counters for Van. And I said Vans beats on him, Dr. Dre. You know, he's going to put the beats on him, Dr. Dre. Hands on him, lots of bass. He's going to, like, you know, when Dr. Dre starts putting the beats on, everyone starts putting the headphones on. They're like doing one of these. They're rocking on in their house. It's going to be one of those. Like, he just beats on him. Like, I feel bad for him as long as his fight's standing. Honestly, do feel bad. I actually don't like seeing Taira get pummeled. It makes me feel oddly sympathetic for the guy, especially after that Royval fight. So I want, like, I don't really want anyone to win because I like both guys, but I actually do feel for Taira when he starts to get battered and just doesn't know how to move his head. I'm like, yo, move your head, man. Like, fuck. But it's just too problematic for somebody like Joshua Van. Like, the lack of head movement is the biggest thing in this fight that's just concerning me, especially when he gets tired and slows down. He's going to need a quick finish. That being said, let's talk about the pros because we're just kind of getting on Taira. Let's glaze him up. Let's hype him up a little bit. First of all, grappling pros, he has a lot. Clinch wrestling is next level. And I also said abnormally strong bodyweight transfer IQ. I said abnormally strong. I put a question mark there because I don't know if he's abnormally strong. I notice with a lot of these high-level wrestlers, they look abnormally strong, but it's just their understanding of bodyweight transfer. They know when to shift their weight a certain way to have their opposition looking weaker or have their opposition looking like they can't get out of certain positions because they just know how to transfer their body. So I feel like his bodyweight transfer IQ is very high up there, as well as the fact he could just be abnormally strong. I seen him like pick people up and slam them on his head from high crotches. I seen him grab people from the fence and like just clinch wrestle them. His clinch wrestling is next level. It's actually his best takedown. People mistaken his takedowns from being like he shoots takedowns, scores like Hamzat. That's not how he gets a lot of his takedowns. A lot of his takedowns are like you collide into him and he like gets a hold of you from a body lock and then you're going for a ride, or he just gets a hold of you from some out of position thing. I've started to notice a lot of people he takes down, like it comes from like them throwing like knees at him, which is weird. I don't know why people do that. And then he grabs a knee and then he wrestles you to the ground. And then I said his ability to take the back is the best I've ever seen. Yes, this is including Aljamain Sterling. He takes the back in a very impressive way. Like, he'll have you in the fence, if he's fence wrestling you, then like he'll shift your weight, force you to like fight for a position, and then he's gonna take your back off that. It's just disgusting. Like, he's just so quick with it. And he kind of similar to like Ray Tatsuro. But I said he's just way better at it. Like, he just takes a lot of people's back. I think he like averages a back take per fight. That's how often he does it. It's like very rare to see a fight of Tatsuro Taira where he doesn't take the back. Royval did the best job with him, but it's probably because Royval actually trained with him and has great BJJ and was able to like scramble these weird positions. But let's just say when he takes your back, the fight's usually over or the round's usually lost. So it's one of those things when he does take your back, the round's over. It kind of reminds you of Aljamain Sterling, but he's just a lot more active and a bit more dangerous than Aljamain Sterling when he does get your back. I'm not going to lie. Which leads me to my next point, which is his great submissions, the rear naked choke, the armbar, the triangle, etc. Rear naked choke, of course, is his best submission. That's obviously a submission also that Van got submitted by. So that's an even bigger pro in this sense. You know, he just makes your life uncomfortable when he gets your back and he just gets control of you. He makes your life uncomfortable. He's also really good at like getting to full mount. And then when he's forcing you to turn, then getting your back. And then when you turn out of that, he gets back to full mount. And he will land positional ground and pound, which is my last point. Look at the Moreno fight. That fight was stopped perfectly. People complain about the stoppage. He had Moreno in position. Moreno couldn't move. Started hammering ground and pound. Taira just looked objectively way better. You couldn't have, like, even if we let that fight continue, Moreno might have died in there. Like, we couldn't let Moreno take that unnecessary damage. Like, he will get some positional ground and pound where you literally can't move your body and he'll just start hammering on you and you can't do anything about it because he's just better than you at securing position and you can't get out. So GG's. So I think he does that really well. So that's one of his best pros. I just have to applaud. As for cons, like, he had a lot of pros. Cons, not that much, but there's some things I have to note for his cons. His takedown entries are telegraphed and they're badly timed. He doesn't actually time takedowns well. And I feel like a lot of people don't know this. Like, people think he's just going to shoot takedown. Well, the first takedown he shoots, you're going to school Van. When people say that, I'm like, okay, you clearly don't watch anything. You're just talking because you know what he's good at. He's great at grappling, but his actual takedown entries, like especially his double legs, his singles, they're very telegraphed and predictable, and a lot of people can sprawl those takedowns. So Moreno was doing great at sprawling those takedowns. The way Moreno got taken down was actually him crashing into him, and then like they landed up in like this kind of like clinch position. Then he takes him down. Also said like he gives up on fence wrestling when uncomfortable. I noticed when like Royval was like pushing against his face, like he'll almost like just abandon the clinch back up and go back to striking, or like he'll exit with the elbow just to leave. Because when you make him uncomfortable in the clinch and like in the clinch on the fence, like when you're like just stuffing his face and just making him work, he's uncomfortable by that. What you don't want to do, which is gonna sound a little bit it's gonna sound like I'm counterproductive right here. Of course, you're supposed to fight the hands, but like when you're more worried about fighting hands and like trying to trying to out technique him and stuff, and you're not actually like bothering him, like you're not really like just putting something in his face, or like that's when he actually gets more comfortable and like starts to like do the wrestling match with it. Because at that point you're having like a grappling match, and he's accustomed to this, man. He's used to this. What I've noticed for his grappling that makes him uncomfortable, and Royval knew this too because Royval trained with him, is that like you have to fight the underhooks, and you got to like push the face, you got to stuff the face, you got to just make it ugly, you got to make it uncomfortable, and just don't just rest on the fence. If you rest against the fence with him, and I know it's normal to rest against the fence when you get controlled because you're probably tired, but the second you do that with Taira, mama, it's over. Like at that point, he's gonna find a way to get your back and take you down. So make it uncomfortable for him in the fence. But the biggest thing with me is like his takedown entries are badly timed. And if you have good reactivity on your sprawls, you should be good. And you actually know who has good reactivity on their sprawls. Unfortunately, Joshua Van, great reactive sprawls. The Ray Tatsuro fight's a perfect example, because I actually think Tatsuro is slightly better at times at shooting in takedowns. But his sprawls against Tatsuro were just beautiful. It's like, if you're gonna, and some of them were badly timed too, like very similar to how very similar to how Taira does it. So like Tatsuro and Taira, they have like similar takedown attempts, but someone like Joshua Van, who's like very quick reactive sprawl, you're not gonna get to his hips correctly, and you're gonna get sprawled, and then that's gonna make you more tired, and then you're gonna get a beating like Ray Tatsuro did. He has a low base and a low center of gravity. He's great at head stuffing on the fence and in the open. This is big because sometimes against Taira, or sometimes against Tatsuro, he would stuff the face really good in the open against the fence, and he would exit with an elbow. That made it so uncomfortable with Tatsuro, and I know that would make it uncomfortable with Taira. So he needs to continue stuffing the head, like especially when he's in on the fence or something. Make it ugly. Put your elbows out. Fight the underhooks. You gotta work against the fence. And what I've seen from Van is that he's too unwilling to get controlled against the fence. That Tatsuro fight showed that. Like, he's not one of those people you hold him against the fence, he's breathing, let me take a breath, because I've seen people do that against Taira, and then they get their back taken really quickly. He's always working, and he's always making his opponent work, which gets them tired, and I know Taira hates that, so he needs to keep doing that. I also said he's good at getting up, but good at getting up against Ray Tatsuro. Tatsuro, even though I've seen some crazy shit of him in the grappling, he's still not quite Taira's level. Like, I've noticed he's involved in a lot more scrambles because he loses positions more. If you're scrambling more, you're losing positions more. So when I was actually watching Tatsuro's tape back in the road to UFC and all that, he was in a lot more scrambles than I usually see Taira in. Taira does get in a couple scrambles, but like, Taira wins the scrambles in very impressive fashion. I'd even put that for a pro. His scrambling is great, but Tatsuro, like, Van was just able to get up. Like, he has a very low center of gravity. He'll fight like a butterfly hook, then he'll get to his feet, and he's good at, like, because he's such a low, shorter guy, low base, so he'll get to a knee quickly, he'll get up quickly, and then he'll go back to just pressuring you, man. So he's actually really good at getting up and really good at defending takedowns. So honestly, this fight will be a little bit different in my opinion if Joshua Van was like known for someone who gets taken down easily or can't get up easily. But from what I've seen from Joshua Van, he does both of those really well. So fights like this are interesting because you got to consider, like, okay, well, this happens, this is going to happen, but it's just not easy to take down Van, and I want people to understand that. So if you're picking Taira solely based on the fact you think he's going to go in there and just take down Van first try and smoke him, then you're probably picking incorrectly based on your knowledge. Moving on, though, we got to talk about the cons. I still said he lost by rear naked choke in 2021. Now, I know it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse. Can he get off of that? We get it. He lost in 2021. It's been 5 years. The way he lost. I got to keep saying the way he lost. Like, the way he was uncomfortable and tapped in that position, very weird. Then I said nowhere near as experienced as Taira on the ground. So, yes, it might not be easy getting him on the ground, but once you get him on the ground, I know he stood up against Tatsuro, but Tatsuro is not Taira as far as control time is concerned. So that's the bad part. When he does get on the ground, I just think it's a different ball game, man. At that point, it's different. You're going to be in his world. And if he gets you in advantageous positions, if he takes your back, it's GG's. I'd like Van, when he got his back taken in that fight. He got rear naked choked. He didn't really have something. He was already tired at that point, which is bad. But he didn't have anything to show for it. Like he kind of was just getting controlled, and then got put in a bad, like a face crank, and he tapped because he panicked. So he's just nowhere near as experienced on the ground. If Taira gets him on the ground, it's just night and day. You know, the striking's one night, the striking is day, the ground is night. You know, like it's two different ballparks in this fight. It's like a battle of styles. This one it is. So it's really, this one's gonna be interesting, man. I gotta be real, but when he gets him on the ground, it's just a different thing, which leads me to a grappling comparison. I said Van will stuff 90% of the takedowns, especially in the open. He's gonna stuff like every takedown that Taira throws. He's gonna be similar to the Moreno fight. Like every single open takedown he throws, he's gonna stuff. Defense wrestling won't be easy for Taira as well. Like I do feel like Taira, like even though he might be good at fence wrestling and clinch wrestling, if Van's doing the right things and stuff in the face, it's going to be a problem. What it really gets a problem is if Taira gets his hands locked in like the middle of the octagon, good night, brother. You're going for a ride. Like if he gets his hands locked, he'll just muscle Van to the ground. You know, Van's a little bit shorter. He'll lift Van off his feet. He'll muscle him to the ground. And once he does that, I said once it touches the floor, GG's. So this is actually one of those fights I think that when it touches the floor, the fight could be over, which is interesting, isn't it? Like that's how good I believe Taira is on the ground. And I know Van, like I said, Van is not, he's gotten up, but I really just think that when this fight touches the ground, is wraps, dude. I think, and that's crazy to say because it's a very high chance this fight does touch the ground, isn't there? Because even though Van is not easy to take down, eventually he might just get taken down. And it's just a little bit different than when Ray Tatsuro takes you down. It's a little bit different. So that's when it could be, the fight could actually be over or the round can be lost, you know. But even then, the people who survive rounds against Taira, like Brandon Royval, who have crazy BJJ, who's trained with Taira, who knows how good Taira is and he knows his weaknesses. What Royval was doing, he was like attacking legs. Like he was going for submissions, making Taira scramble. And then off that scramble, Royval would try to get to his feet, but even then, he still couldn't get out of that. So the fact that someone who's trained with him night and day, main training partner who worked on his grappling, still couldn't get out of his full control, you know, for some of these rounds. He was sometimes, but for most of these rounds, it was crazy to me. You know, of course, the striking's what decided that fight because he was able to survive when he was on the ground. But is Van going to survive? That's the real question that I just can't answer confidently. So that is what it is, man. Oh, Chincha. Oh, it's like a night and day, man. Striking's one thing, grappling's one thing. But, like, how do I think the fight goes? What's my prediction? Van by KO or Taira by sub. Now, listen to my yap. Because you guys wanted to click this and be like, who's Kenny going to pick? Well, now you're going to have to listen to my yap. I really think this fight is one of those ones where stylistically is conflicting for both people. You know, and it's one of those ones when I'm talking out loud, I have to start to understand things that I feel like are true. Now, what's true about this fight is objectively Joshua Van is the better fighter, more well-rounded, you know. It feels like Joshua Van is more well-rounded slightly. I'm saying that because when it's on the feet, Joshua Van has a significant advantage. Not that Taira can't land on him at all. Taira will land shots. Taira does have low kicks that can be problematic, but I just feel like overall, Van has been in there with people with better kicks. He's been in there with people who are better strikers, and he's put a bad beating on those guys, you know. Man, but as I say the low kick part out loud, I'm starting to get PTSD from Carlos Prates and JDM, and that's making me think that, you know, Taira can do his thing, you know, and land some low kicks, you know, but his head movement just non-existent. His head movement is non-existent, so he's going to get caught a lot. You know, he's going to get a lot of his takedowns stuffed, but the second he actually gets Van on the ground, it'd be problematic. As well as the fact that I remember when sometimes he was stuffing Tatsuro's takedowns and getting up using the fence, he wasn't giving his back, but his back was there to be taken, but Ray Tatsuro didn't capitalize on that, which I feel like Tatsuro Taira would capitalize on that, which could be problematic. You know, honestly, my as I speak out loud, I'm starting to think that Taira by sub's more likely, which is a little bit weird to say. That's what I'm starting to think. However, based on this, based on my pros and cons list, I've noticed that sometimes the answers are right in front of me when I make these because I do absurd amount of footage. I want to be right, guys. You guys got to realize that I want to be right. You know, and a lot of the cons of him having bad head movement and like just Van being really hard to deal with when you're on the feet with, as well as the fact that his grappling is great and everything, but his takedown entries are very badly telegraphed. His head movement gets worse as the fight goes, and he gives up on takedowns. And I just think the smart pick out of these two, whether it's Van by KO or Taira by sub, because I think this only ends in those ways, I'm going to have to say, considering all that, I think Van will KO him within 3 rounds. I just think that when he is forced to stand, I've seen him get rocked by these other guys, but they're just not Van. Van will put it on you. Van will put the pressure on you, and Van will probably find the kill shot and get it done. I think Tatsuro Taira is amazing, and I think he has a very good chance of winning this fight. This is one of the most 50-50 fights ever. Whoever wins this fight is going to be like, oh, I told you so, no matter who wins it, because it's like one of those fights stylistically that whoever wins it is probably going to win it by the way we know they're going to win it, and I think Van's going to win it by the way I think he should win it, which is stuffing the takedowns, making a living hell, putting pressure on him. You know, Taira isn't the type to get discouraged horribly, but I will say that Taira's takedown attempts do slow down as the fight accumulates based on how well he's shooting. You know, I've noticed like sometimes he'll fail, and he won't shoot right after. Ray Tatsuro would shoot, fail, shoot, fail, shoot, fail, shoot, fail. He went like, what, 4 for 25 against Van or something crazy like that. Whereas I feel like Taira will shoot, fail, he'll take like a minute or two because he's very conscious of his endurance. And I know why he's conscious of his endurance, because his head movement gets even worse, and then he gets a beating. Like, man, there's so much times where Val could have finished the fight that I just feel like Van will finish the fight there. You know, he hits with a different pop, different precision, different accuracy. I think Joshua Van will finish Tatsuro Taira. I think he's going to finish. There's no way this fight goes a distance either way. Like, either way, this fight won't go the distance. Trust me when I say that. So I think Van's going to knock him out. I love Taira. I think Taira's a future champion. He's really next level. It's just that this guy standing in front of it happens to be very reactive with his takedown defense. He's not easy to take down. And from what I've seen, he's actually not easy to hold down against the other grappler he went against. Of course, that grappler's not his level, but at least he's been experienced with a Japanese wrestler or grappler to that extent, which is why I'm going Joshua Van, because Taira has not stood in front of a boxer as quick, as clean, and as precise as Joshua Van. So I think Taira will get knocked out in this one. So I am going Joshua Van to upset people because he is the underdog. Joshua Van to shock the world. I know he won the belt in the fraud way, but I'm telling you right now, he's going to show you guys why he is the best flyweight in the world. But let me know what you guys think at the end of the day. You know, I did a lot of film for this one, so it'd be a bit upsetting if I get this one wrong. It'd be a bit upsetting if I get it wrong, but I do trust myself because I really don't usually miss with these. But let me know what you think down below. That's it for me. God bless. 2, 3.